So we are now in 2013 and this video will be a little bit like work and university related. But before I show you this t-shirt, I need to catch you up before this t-shirt actually becomes relevant. I will graduate towards the end of 2013, which means in the month before that I was very busy with my bachelor's thesis. And before that I was busy finding my bachelor thesis. The bachelor thesis was written practically at the company I was employed at and in a project there. And here I have my bachelor's thesis. I have not really shown this before, so I thought I'd give you just a quick overview of what I have written about. The fancy title of my thesis was Theoretical and Practical Security Analysis of the Fiber Channel over Ethernet Protocol. The first part is basically just fluff and doesn't matter, but it was a security analysis of a protocol. And as you can see, this was written in cooperation with IBM and was labeled confidential. And this bachelor thesis also had a restriction notice that this document contains IBM confidential information until October 2018. And I was not allowed to talk about and circulate this information beforehand. At first I was really sad about this because I thought maybe this could be my way of doing a presentation, a talk at CCC or some other conference, and this would prevent me from getting my name out there and advertising myself to the world with talks. But as you already know, I had also my severe anxiety, which means I probably would have not done any talks anyway. Let's have a quick look at the abstract because that's basically what I've written about. Fiber Channel over Ethernet, or Fcoe, is a network protocol for accessing storage devices on the block level. Because regular fiber channel uses its own special hardware, the Fcoe standard unifies the Ethernet and fiber channel world by encapsulating fiber channel frames into Ethernet frames. This was a big gotcha moment for me. In our general IT world that you know about, you basically only know Ethernet. You always have these Ethernet frames, and inside of these Ethernet frames you have then TCP frames and IP frames and so forth. All the hardware that you are used to is the Ethernet world. And working at IBM exposed me to this enterprise world where there exist actually physically different kinds of protocols. And fiber channel is one of those protocols. The name also really confused me at first because fiber channel just sounds it's fiber connections. You know, Ethernet also exists with fiber connections. And physically it is fiber connections, but fiber channels is an actual its own protocol. It's very different to Ethernet. And fiber channel is used to connect storage devices. You have to think huge mainframes and huge storage devices and dozens and hundreds of servers that may be accessing the same storage server. And so that connection must be extremely fast, and that was not done with some kind of Ethernet protocol, but it was done with this fiber channel protocol. And Fcoe was this idea of taking the fiber channel protocol but encapsulating it within Ethernet so that you can use your Ethernet network and all the Ethernet cables you have and all your Ethernet hardware, but then speak fiber channel protocol over it. Fcoe capable switches can be used to handle regular Ethernet traffic such as TCP/IP as well as Fcoe, which means administrator can use most of the existing hardware. So this is kind of shattering the dream a bit, so you can't just reuse your Ethernet devices that you have. You still need switches that support the Fcoe Ethernet protocol because there's some internal switching going on and they kind of really abuse the Ethernet layer. But still, theoretically, if you have Fcoe enabled switches, you only need one set of hardware. You don't need special extra hardware for fiber channel, which might be a benefit. While normal fiber channel is physically isolated from Ethernet networks, which makes sense because I told you that fiber channel is it's completely its own hardware thing, it's completely different network. Fcoe unifies those two worlds, which might introduce new attack vectors. This makes sense, right? Imagine you have hacked into a server at some company. That server is connected with Ethernet cables and Ethernet switches around. And fiber channel would now be its own network interface kind of thing connected to storage. But now these two things share something. So it could be that the fiber channel protocol introduces maybe new vulnerabilities into the Ethernet world that you have maybe not expected. Maybe enabling that feature just exposes you to certain attacks, or storage devices were previously on an isolated network, suddenly they are visible inside of the Ethernet network, and a server that would theoretically not access those storage devices could now access those storage devices. All of these considerations were like attack ideas. The research in this thesis gives a broad view on theoretical attack vectors, general protocol design flaws, and practical security issues. A state-of-the-art approach of language theoretic security is used to understand the root cause of many issues with the Fcoe protocol. Remember those impactful talks that I shared with you in this video series? For example, the Science of Insecurity talk? This introduced me to this world of language theoretic security, which I thought was so fascinating. And while, I'm not like super deep into the state-of-the-art research and that field, I wanted to try to apply it to my bachelor thesis because I was looking at protocols, and language theoretic security tries to look at protocols a little bit differently. Behavioral analysis of hardware and fuzzing shows different interpretations of the standardized protocols and typical programming errors in the firmware of Fcoe switches. So the different implementation interpretations, this is basically this language theoretic approach, that maybe a switch understands the Fcoe protocol differently than the server behind it or the server that tries to speak it. And then through fuzzing, I also found a crash in a Cisco switch, for example. It completely killed the switch. Now let's have a quick look at the table of contents just to get an overview of what I was talking about. First, I'm introducing the data center storage networks, for example, iSCSI and fiber channel over Ethernet, try to provide context of what this kind of world is about. And then I talk a lot about fiber channel over Ethernet, describing how this protocol works. To talk about security, I had to introduce also the threat model, who would try to attack this protocol and how. And so here, the next section, modern computer attacks, goes into different possible attackers. And then I introduce protocol security analysis. In this section, I mainly introduce the language theoretic security view. I talk about the Chomsky hierarchy, the idea of shotgun parsers, what weird machines are, and parser differentials. And then I have two big sections that actually go into the security of Fcoe. First, I have a little bit of a theoretical approach, talking about that Fcoe is kind of a trusted zone and should never be actually overlapping with anything that is non-trusting. Some kind of denial of service, and that you could just spoof identifiers. You can compare that to spoofing IP addresses, basically. And then I have some practical approaches where I try to find some malicious stuff. And all the way here at the bottom, you can see Flogi descriptor length segmentation fault. This was my crash in a Cisco switch. To this day, I'm super proud of it. Well, this crash, I couldn't really debug. I didn't have really the experience to work with these kind of embedded switches and how it works. But I believe it was just null pointer exceptions, because if you have the length 0, I remember it would just crash. A fabric login with the descriptor length 0 caused a segmentation fault, which crashed the switch. An inspection of the core dump revealed the error message, invalid number of descriptors in login rec. So I assume this was never exploitable. I was very proud of this because this just worked if the switch supported fiber channel over Ethernet. Even if you don't use fiber channel over Ethernet, the switch somehow still tried to parse if an Fcoe packet was coming in, and it was just completely crash the switch. So that was my bachelor thesis. I still to this day think it's a really cool and interesting topic, and I'm kind of proud of this thesis. But I also know that if I would look more closely into this now and look at it with my much more experience now, this is obviously not super hardcore what I've been doing there. But you can still see here small things where CTFs, for example, helped me. I noticed that the Cisco switch was creating a core dump, and I knew about core dumps from doing binary exploitation stuff. So I knew that I can take this core dump and look at it with GDB and see what this core dump is about. I have never learned about core dumps in university. This is, for example, knowledge that I got from CTFs. Also, this protocol analysis stuff, this is not something I've learned in university. Basically, nothing I really have done here was taught to me in university. Fiber channel over Ethernet is such an obscure protocol, nobody mentions that in class. That makes no sense. We obviously learn a little bit of Ethernet networking, but that's about it. With that, I don't want to say that university is useless. I'm just saying it's so important to learn general fundamentals and abstract stuff, because the real world is full of technology that you have never heard about. And when you go and work for a company, especially like companies that do like state-of-the-art development and research, you will find yourself being exposed to technologies and hardware and software that you never realized existed. And often you can really only understand this stuff if you have a basic understanding of how computers work. Now, one more small thing, and then we get to the t-shirt. So towards the end of my university, I also obviously had to think about what I do next. I mentioned in a previous video that I started to like interview a little bit with some other companies. I also remember interviewing at a local web development company because I thought to just become a developer. To this day, I think being a developer is actually a really nice job. I can totally see myself in the future maybe take on some development work. Simply because I think coding is kind of fun, and I think my experience in security and this architectural thought, like understanding how different systems interplay with each other and what can cause issues and what not, I feel like that would really benefit me as a developer. I think I could be a really valuable member in a development team. And if I would apply nowadays to a job for development, I would like focus a lot about my experience with security, simply like showing them, hey, I can be a member of your team with a maybe different view on things, and I can be very, very productive and helpful in discussions about how a certain software part needs to be architected and things like that. Anyway, I was also thinking about doing a master's, but I was also kind of still torn by that. But towards the end of my bachelor's degree, more and more I realized, yeah, I should probably do a master's degree. However, my anxiety got so bad, so I also decided to take a break of 6 months. At this point, I still didn't really like accept that I have like a mental issue with like anxiety attacks and panic attacks or whatever. I just thought I had too much stress from my dual study program, as well as doing all these projects on the side that I've been always doing. At this time, I also opened up to my parents and told them about what I was struggling with, and they were very concerned and very supportive of me. I don't remember whose idea was it, if I asked if I can take a break or if they suggested, hey, take a break. I think I also remember them wanting me to travel. I think they were really eager to pay money so I can just travel the world a little bit, because that's like the thing that people my age would be doing after school or after university. But I didn't like to travel, and with my anxiety, impossible. So I hated that idea. But I thought maybe staying at home for 6 months and just relaxing and following like the stuff I want to do, going deeper into security, use the time to research, play CTF. You know, my dreams were huge. I had so many plans of things that I wanted to look into. I made so many notes at conference talks about technologies that I really wanted to research. So the decision was made. I will take a break for 6 months, basically 1 semester, and then start my master's degree 1 semester later. While I was doing my bachelor's, I was obviously employed at IBM, so there was not a huge financial pressure on my family. So, you know, they were very happy to support me financially during this break, and then also for my master's degree, which was at a regular university without being employed. However, during that time, something crazy happened. So you remember Stack Smashing, who has that YouTube channel, who I mentioned before, who introduced me and connected me to a lot of people already, who has been a very positive influence on my life. He gave a talk, I think at a French conference. I think it was like Hack in Paris or something like that. And while they were like drinking, he met another guy, Mario. Mario is the guy who did the scriptless attack talk at Berlin sites. Also during the time, I think AngularJS became popular, and I think Stack Smashing was also into researching like modern web XSS stuff and sandbox escapes from Angular. And Mario being a browser client-side security guy, I think there was just like a communication stuff happening. And so at this conference, they were like hanging out and drinking alcohol or something. I don't know what they were doing. But Stack Smashing recommended me to Mario. Hey, I know a guy who is like into security. He has potential. He could be something for your company, Cure53. And Thomas told me I should write an email to Mario talking a bit about myself, like sending a little bit like a resume to him. You also know at this point I had my OSCP certification, so obviously like I sent everything. Mario is living in Berlin. I'm living in Stuttgart. And basically Mario just said, let's do a penetration test. For one project, I would join them and just see how I perform. And that was already paid. So this was not some kind of like interview for like 1 or 2 days, like working at a company that is not paid or whatever. Mario paid me for the penetration test. Only half the rate, but that half the rate was already like really, really good for like whatever I was earning before. I got really lucky because that was a PHP web application test, and it was like completely broken. I think after the first or second day, I found, you know, this is so stereotypical, a leftover ping.php script or something that was actually, you know, a remote code execution and, you know, a shell injection. And then we got remote code execution, we could access all the PHP files. And then when we basically turned this black box test into a white box test, we found even more issues. So obviously I made the perfect first impression. Now you have to understand, like, I was not super experienced with security yet. You know now from the story that I have been in security, like really in security, maybe for 1.5 years. I consider kind of like my start of like CTFs to be like the start of security. I mean, I had web security experience already before that. You know, I knew about SQL injections already at the end of high school, but still, like, I felt like I was like not quite ready for it yet. And so basically I had to fake it till you make it. I knew I was not on the experience level than my colleagues, but I knew I was not dumb. And so basically what I did was I just worked like double the time. So basically if I got like a project for like 3 days, I would spend 6 days or the whole week every day, just because I basically had to catch up. IT is like not complicated. Mostly it's just time. And so if I was given like a new technology I didn't know, I just had to research it. And so I had to spend like more time than my colleagues on stuff. And I basically did this for years. And this was like mutually beneficial, right? I would spend more time on it, obviously to catch up, but I think I got really, really good coverage on our projects. And at the same time, I was able to like learn a lot. Oh no, the whole time I forgot to show the t-shirt. So here's the t-shirt. And it shows a Q53 logo. Let's have a look at it on a close-up. So this is the Q53 logo, and here's the text, and there's fire where we walk. Ooh. It also has like the logo on the back with q53.de, but that's basically it. Very basic t-shirt. Now, I have to say that I don't think that this t-shirt I got like very early at starting to work for Q53, but I had to find like a t-shirt that was kind of like matching the story of my life during that point, and I needed something like work or university related to also talk about my bachelor thesis. I have to say that when I say like joined Q53, I don't mean that I'm actually employed at Q53 because I'm a freelancer. I basically just joined the Q53 team. I'm basically just one of the testers that can do projects for. And because I'm a freelancer, I can also do work for other companies, which is obviously absolutely no problem. And also Q53 started out very slow. In 2013, when I started to have like my 6-month break and then eventually go to do my master's degree at the TU Berlin, Q53 was like not a full-time job, by far not. It was like one project maybe every month or maybe every 2 months. So very, very rarely. But the money was pretty good. Like even though I only worked like once a month or maybe once every second month, it paid basically the same like I was being paid when I was employed at IBM for my dual study program. So I was able to basically cover my costs, but also my parents were still supporting me. And then over time, there were more and more projects I could work on at Q53, so the money got better, but I still kind of had to do it on the side while doing my master's degree. There's like this limit in Germany for how much you're allowed to work on the side, mostly for health insurance reasons, what you have to pay. So I had to make sure that I also was under the limit and not working too much. And that limit was on average 20 hours a week. So basically I had like a part-time job while going to university and also during my 6-month break. As probably many of you know, I still take on projects from Q53. Q53, or my freelance work in general, is my main source of income. YouTube is something I just do for fun on the side, and it does not pay close to anything I'm earning as a security professional being a freelancer. I mean, it would be kind of cool, and I think I could kind of make it work with YouTube nowadays just because this channel has grown so huge. I would have to do some changes to be able to actually like live off it, but professional security work and even being like a professional developer just pays more than YouTube, believe me. At least if you don't want to like go all out with like sponsored stuff and so forth. I also never advertise like Q53 on my channel. Some people say you can like earn a lot of money if you like use YouTube to advertise your freelance consultant stuff, but I never did this, and it's also not required. You know, before I grew my YouTube channel, I was growing my professional identity. I got my degrees, my bachelor's degrees. I was about to get a master's degree. I had my shitty OSCP certification. I have so much experience with CTFs. And now I was working even professionally with companies like Cure53. That just opened, further doors for me. There are other companies that sometimes need like manpower, and so they would, for example, ask Cure53, hey, do you know somebody who could like help out or something? So this way I can like grow my professional network and get freelance jobs without having to advertise it on YouTube. And there's more than enough of work that I could be doing in my freelance job. I actually decline a lot more jobs that I could be doing in order to do YouTube. So basically YouTube is losing me money since I started it. Because I want to do these videos and I want to spend the time on it, I have less time on my freelance job. And obviously that means loss in potential projects that I could take on that are really there. That's not theoretical, that's like actively I'm deciding, no, I'm not taking this money, I'm not working for it because I want to do the YouTube stuff on this side. Cure53 is one of the best things that happened to me. I often joke about that I found like my perfect job already, and from here on out it can only get worse because Cure53 and other companies like recurity-labs in Berlin, it's so comfortable and so easy. I work from home. They just ask me, hey, do you want to work on this project? And I just say yes or no, and then I just do my stuff at home and write a report and it's done. There's no time wasted with useless presentations and useless meetings and whatever. Like it's so focused and so optimized on just working the security stuff that this is just like super awesome. So yeah, my freelance job and Cure53 projects were all remote. I basically only like a handful of times in like these 7 years I've been with Cure53, I've gone to some kind of client on site. And I want you to think about how like perfect this was for me and how lucky I was. I was struggling with this like social anxiety and panic attacks when going outside and meeting people and doing stuff. Going to IBM and working on my bachelor thesis was a daily struggle. Like every morning I would throw up going to IBM. So having something that I can do work from home and isolate myself was the perfect thing. I was earning good money despite having mental issues. And I was so lucky, and I still feel to this day so lucky that I was getting that. And I will be forever grateful to Stack Smashing that he introduced me to Mario. Yeah, what else to say about this? I mean, I could talk about Cure53 all day long. It's obviously something that has been with me for like almost 7 years now. I have met amazing colleagues through Cure53. File Descriptor is working for Cure53, Masato Kinogawa is working for Cure53, Insert Script is working for Cure53. It's just like such an amazing group and it's so much fun. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to also mention. So I started to work with Cure53 before I met Mario in person. Talk about all these on-site interviews and traveling to companies to do like interviews. Mario did no interview with me. It was all online and just emails and Skype at the time. And I think Skype not even with like face camera. Mario also often went to Berlin sites. So, at the next Berlin site, this was the first time when I met Mario. This is basically when I walked up to him. Hey Mario, I'm the guy who's actually working with you right now. It's just like such a perfect and modern way of doing business. Like nobody cared how I looked like or whatever. All that counted was my performance basically on this test penetration test. Just, my performance if I can deliver what they need doing a security audit. And yeah, and Mario is also really great and he helped me so much grow throughout these years. Without Cure53, this channel probably wouldn't exist just because of the flexibility and freedom this kind of freelance work gives me. And that's also something I want you to understand. There are probably like thousands and endless amounts of people that could produce the same quality content that I could produce if they had the time. But all these amazing people are stuck in jobs where they have to work 40 hours and they would never have the time to create like YouTube videos or so forth. Just to give you a bit of a reality check, like that I'm not like kind of like special or unique in any way. What is like unique about me is not some kind of like weird talent or intelligent. It's luck about the context I'm in, that I have a job that is like this flexible that allows me to do stuff like this. Anyway, this will probably be a super long video, sorry about that, but we had to cover quite a few months and a little bit of very important development and changes in my life now that I'm leaving university. You are probably eager to hear what I did in the 6 months that I had my break. I think this is something like a lot of people want, right? Like to take just 6 months off and do like hacking and CTFs and whatever. That sounds like a dream. So stay tuned for next video where I tell you everything about my awesome 6-month break.